We do have enough to get started if everyone's ready to get started. Yes, no, okay.
Yes.
You ready, Linda?
I am ready. Sorry, for some reason it kept telling me you have to ask the host to start recording. And I'm going, I am the host.
And it is recording.
Yeah, I finally got it to work. I don't know why. I give up. I am ready if you are.
Okay, great. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Revere High School Building Committee meeting number 32. Today is Thursday, April 7th, 2022, and the time is 5:33 p.m. Linda, could do a roll call, please.
I will start with Mike Picardi,
Present.
Mayor Arrigo. Don't see him. Stacy Rizzo,
Here.
Susan Grevelisi,
Here.
Dr. Kelly,
Here.
Carl Svensson,
Here.
John Corella. Actually, I think he said he was going to be not joining today. Jennifer Hayes,
Here.
Rich Viscay,
Here.
Don Ciramella,
Here.
Nick Rystrom,
Here.
Jared Visconti. Not yet. Patrick Keefe.
Here.
Excellent. Thank you.
Jerry just joined. I think he's connecting to audio.
Ah, yes. Let me just wait until he comes through. Roll call for Jerry Visconti.
Here.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I guess we can start with some housekeeping items for this week, which item number 1 is a vote to approve the March 17th meeting minutes that were sent out earlier this week.
Motion to approve March 17th meeting minutes.
Second.
Excellent. And we will do a roll call for approval of minutes. Mike Picardi.
Yes.
Mayor Arrigo is absent. Stacy Rizzo.
Yes.
Susan Grevelisi.
Yes.
Dr. Kelly.
Yes.
Carl Svensson.
Yes.
And John is absent. Jennifer Hayes. I see you coming off mute, Jennifer, but I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Ah, yes, there you are. Thank you. Rich Viscay,
Yes.
Don Ciramella,
Yes.
Nick Rystrom,
Yes.
Jared Visconti,
Yes.
and Patrick Keefe.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Next, we will move on to approval for left field. We'll start with left field's March invoice, which in this month is in the amount of $17,150.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Kelly. Thank you. And for roll call for approval, Mike Picardi
Yes.
and Stacy Rizzo,
Yes.
Susan Grevelisi,
Yes.
Dr. Kelly,
Yes.
Carl Svensson,
Yes.
Jennifer Hayes,
Yes.
Rich Biscay,
Yes.
Don Ciramella,
Yes.
Nick Rystrom,
Yes.
Jerry Visconti,
Yes.
and Patrick Keith.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we will move on to vote to approval for Perkins Eastman's March invoice, which is in the amount of $90,067.50.
Motion to approve.
Second,
Thank you. And we'll do yet another roll call. It's almost done, promise. Mike Picardi,
Yes.
Stacy Rizzo,
Yes.
Susan Gravellisi,
Yes.
Dr. Kelly,
yes.
Carl Svensson,
Yes.
Jennifer Hayes,
Yes.
Rich Biscay,
Yes.
Don Ciramella,
Yes.
Nick Rystrom,
Yes.
Jerry Visconti,
Yes.
and Patrick Keith.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. I believe that is all I had for housekeeping items. Brian, if you want to
Sure.
take it over.
Sounds good. We had agenda item 4 tonight was just a quick MSBA update, 2 parts. First is a quick recap on what's called the FAS meeting, the Facilities Assessment Subcommittee meeting. It's a meeting of mostly MSBA staff and MSBA management, but also some experts, sort of folks from the industry, designers, builders, etc. And really, it's a meeting that we get invited to twice along this feasibility study path. We do a 20-minute presentation about where the project's gone, what decisions have been made, and then there's some Q&A afterwards. And in short, I've never seen an MSBA FAS meeting go so smoothly. So there's really no problem takeaways to talk about. I think the project got a great reception, and I'm not sure if anybody else who was on the meeting really wants to comment about it, but it went incredibly well. I know at least between Perkins Eastman and Left Field, we all sort of hung up saying, wow, sometimes those meetings can get a little crazy. This one did not. So we have their comments, which I distributed the draft responses to the committee. There's really not a lot of major takeaways that I think we can discuss any of them. If any committee members have questions on any of the comments or responses, we can put them up on the screen. But they asked a lot about eminent domain, when we're going to be able to get on the site for testing, establish a permitting path, et cetera. And we're pretty much giving them the answers that we've been talking about in these meetings, that really site acquisition has to come first. We have a plan for that. City's working on that. We're making progress in that respect in terms of a land use study and 2 appraisals and legal input. There's a meeting being scheduled next week to bring a lot of those parties together and advance that process. But we're basically explaining to the MSBA that that's what's happening now. And the goal is that gets us to possession of that site sometime by or in July, and allows us to get on site, do surveys, do the testing we need to actually conclude the schematic design phase. So they had other questions about costs and HVAC systems, community use of the building, clarifications on the underground parking, but no major alarm ringers for me. And I think Dan, Lynn, and you guys would agree as well.
Yes, I would agree with that. A lot of questions about the site, and a lot of questions about the acquisition, and some questions that really would come later in the process that we're trying to work our way around the answers to, because they're actually more schematic answers that we haven't really started yet, but nothing unusual.
And we're hoping that by pretty much, this time next month, we do have a real sort of laid out path for the dates that the city could achieve the eminent domain filings, what meetings those would be going to and what month to the city council, et cetera. So we're a little bit ahead of it right now of really having that locked down, but I think in the next few weeks, that should all come into resolution.
I'll just add one thing for the committee, since we've all worked on this. They were very complimentary of the planned program, the educational program. So that was very encouraging.
They were. I don't think there was a real negative comment through that whole meeting, really. So
I was
However-
just going to say, Dr. Kelly, Terry Kwan's one of the hardest people on that group to please, and she came out with nothing but accolades. So kudos to you and your team, because often she's tougher than others, and I thought she seemed very well received of your educational plan and the building that supports it. So great job by yourself and your team. That was excellent.
Thanks.
if there's no other questions, we'll be finishing up responses to those comments. A few of them, I'm still working on a few of them. Between left field, Perkins Eastman, we're working on a couple involve some discussions with Dr. Kelly and her team. We'll be issuing those comments back to MSBA on Monday. And at some point following that, we expect a formal approval to move into schematic design, even though we all understand we're working on schematic design. So schematic design for this committee is underway. Any questions or anything on MSBA? Thought we can move on to a CM contractor procurement update. So what's on the screen right now is we have two quick slides to just go through here. There's a subcommittee of this committee which is the pre-qualification and selection for the contractor subcommittee. Ultimately, that subcommittee will make a recommendation to this committee to go with a specific CM. When I say CM, that's contractor. Apologies for always using the acronyms, but you'll hear this one a lot. So what's on the screen now is the schedule for the first phase, the request for qualifications phase. This is a two-phase process per Mass General Law. This first phase allows any qualified or anybody who thinks they're qualified to apply for the project. Everything ran, the RFQ became available yesterday, both in Combis, ran in the Journal, all the ads. Mike Picardi has been a great help through this. His office is handling the details of procurement, communication, getting documents out to people. And what's on the screen right now, I'll just run through quick for the RFQ process. Really, by April 14th, we're going to close the door on any questions. We might need to release an addenda the day after to clarify any questions people have. April 20th is the deadline. For those of you on the subcommittee, which is Mayor Rego, Nick, Don, Carl, and Jerry, we will have qualification packages at City Hall that day. If you'd prefer physical copies, I'll coordinate with you guys. You can come pick them up. It'll be a bunch of binders. We'll also get them all digitally. So if you prefer to go through them PDF, we'll share them with you electronically. And right now we tentatively have an April 25th meeting of this subcommittee, have to be a posted meeting to determine which of those firms who's applied is in fact qualified within sort of the process that the law defines to do this. So this first section really that runs through the end of April, nobody's bidding. There aren't numbers involved. This is simply establishing which CMs are qualified to do the job. And Mike Picardi, if you had 1 sec, I wouldn't just mind seeing how response has been since the ads ran and the RFQ has been available yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, considering it's only been available for 2 full days now, we've had 7 actual contractors, kind of some of the big boys. We have, I'll read them off to you. Gilbane Building Company, Skankska USA, Shawmut Design, Turner Construction, Consigli Construction, Dimeo Construction, and Suffolk Construction. And out of those 7, we got 3 interest forms back from Suffolk, Gilbane, and Skanska.
Perfect. Those
Yeah.
are the usual suspects, pretty much.
Yeah, most of them were yesterday too, so they were right on it.
That's excellent. That's, I'm not even sure I could come up with 1 or 2 others that, I mean, there might be a few that really go after it, but a lot of these folks, not the ones you just listed, but there's a steep drop off in terms of bonding capacity beyond some of these real big contractors. So that might basically be the list of folks who, in and of their own bonding capacity, could apply for the job. So it'll be interesting to see if other folks pull it, or perhaps we end up having to consider any joint ventures.
Sounds good to me.
Excellent. Dan, if you could, sorry, any questions?
Yeah, Mike, Brian, I'm sorry. Just a couple quick questions. Did you say out of all those that had some interest, the 3 of them was Gilbane, Skanska, and Suffolk? Is that what I heard?
So those 7 companies I originally named, they've picked up the RFQ. So with that RFQ, they need to submit back to us this form. It's called the RFQ interest form, statement of interest form. And they have basically 2 weeks to send that form in. So those 3 companies have sent that in within the day. So I would hesitantly expect the majority of them to all send it back.
Oh, okay.
They just
All
haven't done so yet.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification.
No problem.
Jerry, it's almost like that they're that form that they give back to us gets them sort of on the radar. If there's any addenda, they'll get it. So they all have to submit it at some point. And I'd be surprised if even by early next week, all 7 of those haven't returned it, because I hope they're all going to go after it. So ultimately that RFQ process, whether it turns out to be all 7 of those, a subset of them, or those plus others, that first process we just flip through is the qualifications process. Who's in, who's out, who's qualified. I'm certainly not going to speak for the subcommittee, but it would surprise me if any of the 7 Mike just read aren't deemed qualified. It's just my opinion. Obviously, the subcommittee will base that on the information they submit to us and we distribute. So right after the RFQ letters go out to tell firms if they're qualified or not, we go into the second phase, the request for proposals phase. The only people that can respond to the RFP are qualified contractors. No one else can come in. So the only people that will get issued the RFP are the qualified contractors. So it is something that notices go out for, but it becomes a select contest after that first RFQ phase. No one else can come in. We will notify all those firms by April 26th, where we'll probably talk about this a little more with the school and the city, but we might or might not do a pre-proposal conference. I'm not sure if there's a point to meet on the existing site, and maybe we meet down on the end of Dunn Road, maybe we don't, but I don't want to have 20 pickup trucks show up and drive onto the Wonderland property. So we'll follow up with some folks from the city and school, and Carl, Nick, some other folks, Don, to see what we think. But there might or might not be a site meeting. RFP questions due May 11th. We will answer any of those by the following day. If an addenda needs to go out, it will go out. May 17th, actual proposals are due to Mike in his office. And we're going to follow that up as close to May 19th as we can. This is another date. Those of you on this committee, this might vary a little bit. I'm trying to coordinate it with the mayor's calendar to try to ensure he could be there. But May 19th is when we're targeting to meet, to review proposals, prep for interviews, select who we're interviewing, and then do the interviews May 24th, May 25th, depending on how many firms are shortlisted. We then issue a notice of award by the 25th, and pretty much then just go into execute a contract and be off to the races with bringing one of the chosen CM in to help all the site analysis that the team's been busy with.
Brian, if I could, are these like time frames? They're very short turnaround times? Are they like realistic?
Yeah, we think so. These CMs, especially the big ones, are used to this. This give them 2 weeks. Law says give them 2 weeks. We'll give them 2 weeks. And being that we're really not, it's not like a bid environment where we're out where they're bringing on subcontractors at specific prices yet. We haven't awarded them any scope. We're really just getting them on board for pre-construction. So the other thing I can say is all 7 of those that you mentioned have known this is coming for some time, and to varying degrees have been sort of trolling the process online. Sometimes, we've gotten questions over the past number of months from CMs we work with, but all that sort of went into radio silence once the RFQ went out yesterday.
Okay.
Brian, one suggestion on the pre-proposal conference, if we do want to do something there, and if we want to contain it in some way, we could have them come to the high school in the late afternoon, after school hours, and go by school bus to drive past the site and maybe down Dunn Road. And, just so people can get a visual, but that way we control the not having 20 pickup trucks pull up on the Wonderland area.
Yep, it's a good idea.
So,
yeah,
Right,
I'll follow up. Go ahead, sorry.
To follow up on that too, we may want to do some type of video presentation that shows the aerial view and all that, and some of our challenges with the underground pipes and some of the environmental issues that we're looking at too, so that they can get a good bird's eye view of the site before we kind of head down there and hit the perimeter of it. But if we're going to do something like that, we should probably show them, some of our challenges, because if they're not up for the task right there, we may not want to string them along anymore. I mean, there's going to be some serious challenges, and I think we should put them right on the table up front.
I agree with Carl. I don't want them to come back to us after they're selected and say, well, we weren't able to get on that property, so we really didn't understand. Do you know what I mean?
Yep. You just gave me an idea, Carl, that I'll make a call on tomorrow. We might be able to get a drone down over there and do some fly-throughs and put something together with that. I have a coworker who I can fairly often con into bringing his drone to sites. So if he's all registered, he can pull the right permits, et cetera, and maybe we can make that happen in the coming weeks and do some sort of like detailed flyover.
Brian, make sure that they do register, because we floated a drone in there a couple of weeks ago and the state police show right up. Because
Okay. Yep.
yeah, it shows up. They have a monitoring system showing drones that are airborne.
Nope, good reminder. I'll talk to him. I know he's worked in a number of communities and he's pretty much used to the FAA reporting process, but we'll make sure we double down. We might even reach out to some of you folks or the police just to say that, we have a permit. This is going to happen. This is when it's going to happen. Okay, any other questions on contractor selection process?
Brian, on the interviews, I assume you'll probably select 3 or so. I'd want to be sure that there was sufficient time, after the interviews. It may be the same day, it may have to be the next day, for everybody to have a chance to discuss what they saw, as opposed to just jump to rating, because you learn a lot from going around the table about what other people observe. So I would want to see that there's enough time to really evaluate those interviews. My other question is, can only members of the subcommittee ask questions?
I think I would defer to my interpretation of open meeting law is if the subcommittee wants to have non-voting members there and allow them to ask questions, there's nothing in open meeting law that prevents that. And an example of that is often like we left field. Lynn is the official voting member, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to necessarily keep my mouth shut the whole time. I think as long as the subcommittee's okay with it, I don't see there being a problem.
All right, because it won't surprise anyone that I would like to ask questions.
Yep.
And we would like for Joe to ask questions.
Agreed. I'll keep you CC'd on all these. And Joe, and it just maybe goes as a little bit of a better answer to Mike's question, but I have a feeling this May 24, May 25 date, May 24 might become May 24th, 25th, and 26th, and then the notice of award happens afterwards. You're 100% right that these interviews are probably going to need to be about an hour a piece, and then there's going to need to be some hours to digest that, make a decision. Some of the earlier meetings in the RFQ phase, we're going to need a few hours with the committee as well, just to say, you know, how are we going to rank them? How are we going to score them? We can go through some spreadsheets and whatnot. So it will take time though. You're right. And discussion really does help.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions on CM selection, I think Danny, you've taken it away.
And so we're gonna, as Carl alluded to a little earlier, we've had we've started the working groups. We've had a few site selection and site working groups that have been well attended, and much information is being transferred back and forth between everyone in the group. And we've uncovered / learned more about the site and about the constraints that are out there. And this is kind of an overview of some of the more significant constraints, putting aside the things that we are completely unknown, like what's in the foundations and what's under the ground. These are the ones that we all can either see or have good knowledge of being potentially there. So there is, at the end of Dunn Road, a potential wetland that has a very common wetland plant growing in it, and from what we're being told, it's quite large. And that's that big blue bubble there at the end of Dunn Road. The orange lines represent the underground utilities, which are also significant because they don't just feed the site, they're actually feeding different sections of the city. The intention is to relocate at least that drainage line, possibly the sewer connection from Dunn Road, depending on where it lands in the foundation system of the building, and hoping to potentially not hit the other sewer line if we can. But our intent is not to build on top of these, so there could be some significant work in reworking these and getting these out of the footprint of the building. As you can see, the triangle is really quite a bit under that kind of parking area and the end of the classroom wing / gym area. Inside the old dog track, we're being told that there is potentially some smaller wetlands, 2 low-lying areas that are wet and that probably have wetland plants growing in them. There's the county ditch that we all know is there. We're being told now that the county ditch potentially is not going to be able to be culverted, and that we're going to have to leave it daylit in some way. And there's also, as you see next to this little inset drawing here, you see that little blue squiggly line. That is a historic stream, which is also the jurisdictional Chapter 91 historic high water line. So I'm not 100%, I'm not 100% sure what that means, but after learning all these things, we've decided to bring on a permitting expert who is going to help shepherd us through and help us figure out what all these things mean. So those are the kind of the things that we're dealing with on this site, are the potential wetlands, the floodplains that we all know are there, the county ditch that's running through it, the stream / historic high tide line, and the sewage and drainage infrastructure that's underneath there. So those are the knowns. There's also going to be unknowns when we get under the ground.
So Dan, looking at all these things and learning what you've recently learned, they all, are going to need attention, et cetera. But is there anything here that sort of fundamentally changes how you think about the site in a, time or dollar way?
That's possible. There's possibly, depending on what Epsilon, the permitting group, tells us, there could be an extension of time needed for some of the permits that may be required. Although they are telling me that it is possible that during the permitting process, we would be able to get site work underway and get the enabling work, demolition and such, which was kind of how we were envisioning the startup anyway. So it may affect the construction of the building, but it may not, it may have a less of an effect on the actual overall project.
Yep, and Joe, it's sort of, and Dan, correct me if I'm gonna mischaracterize this, but probably the biggest thing is what is the definition of the green line that's labeled ditch here? If that in fact is going to be defined as a stream, we start flirting with an environmental impact report process, which would change the schedule to some degree. So if confirming that we do not need to do an environmental impact report, an EIR, holds us on the aggressive schedule we've set. If we have to go through an EIR one way or the other, something's probably going to slip. But as Dan noted, we're learning more about it and trying to figure out what could be done. Could site remediation be done? If we can dovetail some of these processes, even with an EIR, maybe there's not wholesale slippage of the schedule.
Yep.
And again, I know this is way too early to sort of make any kind of calculations, but let's see, I have to use my appropriate language here. Is there anything that you saw and said, oh my, as opposed to oh something else, that concerned about, that added a concern about maybe, you know, significant infrastructure that costs money?
I think that's going to come down to the engineering solutions.
Okay.
So every one of these we can engineer our way out of all of this. It's just a matter of what those solutions and at the end of the day are. And that's one of the reasons I felt pretty strongly that right after yesterday's meeting, I immediately called the permitting team and was like, I need you on board, because not only do we want to understand how it may affect the schedule, but I don't want to go down, we don't want to draw things that we don't need to draw. Yep. And I also don't want to, do the opposite, like fall into traps that we've drawn things that we can't do. So I think that, so to answer the question, I think we can engineer our way out of everything here. It's just a matter of how.
No, all the more reason it's good that we're getting the CM on.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, there's going to be a lot riding on the plus or minus July, getting the 2 estimates going, one of which will be the contractor, getting close or at access to the land. I know just one other quick update, Dan, that I think was positive of, Dan did some work hunting down some folks that can help us with survey. And I'm not sure we've made like final decisions on that stuff, Dan, but a company that did the last 2 surveys on this property, one in the 90s, one in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken, is probably going to be on board. And anybody we found that knows this site and has worked on it before, including the permitting consultants, we're trying to get them on board to help out, lacking the ability to go down there and do it ourselves.
There are many people who have worked on this site that I'm finding out. BSC is the surveyor that Brian's speaking of, and they have done 2 surveys. They have the CAD drawings of it, and their price is 1/4 what the other surveyor was, because they have all of this data already, and they're just gonna rework it based on today, what's out there now. So they're way ahead of the other teams as far as the pricing, and that gives us more flexibility for some of the other things we might need to do.
So do we have remaining budget to do whatever additional studies this new information requires?
That is yet to be seen, but that's savings in the survey is significant. So it's going to give us a lot more leeway as far as at a minimum, getting the permitting expert on board and having the matrices and having all the information that we need, and the wetland scientists and having all that stuff covered. Yes.
I think where we might end up needing to talk money is, again, going back to my original response to you, Joe, is if we end up needing to go down the environmental impact report alley, then that's probably going to be well, how do we make that happen financially, and when can we make it happen?
Yep.
but I know Nick's been very helpful in these meetings. Carl's been
Yes.
in some of these site meetings. It's been, I know
Dawn
it's,
too.
yep, Dawn. It's been helpful with trying to go all hands on deck on whatever we can learn about this, and making some good progress.
Brian and Dan, has anyone looked into any of the permitting or environmental issues that may have come up on what is the current Amazon site? And it looks like they're probably dealt with some of the similar situations to get that building up and running. I know it was a while ago, but there may be something to look at to see who was in and what type of permitting was required for that site there.
Yep.
We can definitely, we can ask around, try to find who was involved with that, definitely.
It, as I mentioned a little while ago, it's been easy to find people who have worked on this site. There's lots of them, and there's a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of knowledge out there that I've just been tapping into, finding people who have either done some kind of study on the site. One of the other OPMs we work with represented MGM when they were looking at this site. So I have access to all that information now too. So
As far as Amazon goes, when they permitted with the city, my department and probably some others as well, building and water and sewer, has some information that was provided, like I said, during their permitting process. So we probably can provide some of that that we have that we can start with. So if you want to, maybe speak about it offline tomorrow at some point, I can get over to you guys what we have.
Right, Nick, and I was actually talking about the construction of the original structure and what maybe they went through to get their permitting to build that building, not so much Amazon's right to the building.
Back when it was Toll, I think it was.
Yeah, there was a PF O'Connor there. I forget its original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I think I do have plans of when they actually relocated the ditch when they built it. I have some plans for that, but I don't recall that I have much in terms of permitting documentation. But what I do have, I can provide.
yeah, I imagine relocation of the ditch at this point, this day and age, would be very difficult, if not impossible to do. We only have a little triangle of it. The rest of it's on the rest of the site. We also had lots of conversations about the flooding and the potential for flood on what we all know is the floodplain. Present day, which is this map here, shows the 100-year storm event, that there's basically a 1% chance that this site would flood each year. It's impossible to say which year that would be, or if that would happen 3 times in 1 year over a 3-year period, or just once every year, but that's the percentage chance of a potential flood on this site is 1%. And we also talked a lot about the tide gates that are upstream here in the marsh. And if those are breached, basically it's going to flood. The site will flood significantly. So you can see down here, the approximate 100-year storm result right now represents a potential 7 feet of flood water over the whole site. So we also asked them to look at future events, because one of MSBA's questions in the PSR report was about future flooding and how to future proof and what happens 30 years, 40 years, 50 years from now. So here's the 2030 100-year storm event. Basically, this showing the map of what the water plane looks like at a 100-year event, at that same storm event. So now we're looking at an increase to about 10 feet from the 7 feet. Now it's up to 10 feet. And it goes slightly deeper into the site. So now it's all the way over, not quite to the building, but over, all the way over to here. So they're saying, our team is also saying that some of the mapping, it's reasonable because of the site's topography. It's basically the entire site is almost at an elevation of 4.5. It actually kind of dips down from the entrance. Here is about 7 and here is about 7 and it dips down into here. It's like a bowl. They're saying that this water would probably be more spread out across that hatched area. that this may not be, the way it models may not be completely accurate. It's telling it stops here, but because of the topography of the site, it's likely that it would actually be into here too. Here's the single 2030 increase across the site due to the sea level rise, potential sea level rise. So you can see now we're looking at, again, the entire site, this entire area. Probability of flooding, and then there's the map of the probability here. So you can, that green is that 1%, and that yellow is the 5%, and then it goes down to 0.01%. So this being the most probable next, and then that, and then this color.
And the yellow is 0.5%, not 5%.
Correct, 0.5, 0.5.
Okay.
So here's the 2070 100-year storm event. So the 2070, you can see that now this water is all the way, look, it's, I think if you could go off this map, you would see it's all the way up to the existing high school site. And the site that we're on would be under roughly 10 feet of water at 100-year, at this 2070 100-year event, which is again a 1% chance. And here's the tide gate marked out again. And here's the probability of flooding, again, 100 during a single year, 2070. So she's saying the portion, there's now saying portion in 2070, because of sea level rise, portions of the site have 100% chance of flooding